This is Jim Heavens, the mayor of Dyersville, doing a mayor update. It's our first time doing some community updates, and so this is where you get the firsthand view of all the information that needs to know. So thank you for coming on and talking with me today. And I just want to cover just a few topics just for viewers to know how Dyersville is coming. You know, there's a lot of things going on at City Hall, and if you look around Dyersville, there's some busy streets and some busy businesses, but yet there are still some that are struggling with COVID. So I was just wondering if you can kind of talk on some of the growth that Dyersville has seen.
Well, thanks for inviting me on this, Carla. I appreciate it. And I think it'll be kind of fun to talk about Dyersville. You know, we like to do that because we got a lot of good things we can say. And, you know, as far as how the community has grown, you know, one of the things that's maybe unique to me, not totally unique, but I'm not a native of Dyersville. I've only lived here, I think, well, let's see, be 26 years now. So I'm kind of a neophyte. But I was elected as mayor in 2003. And if you can go back with that perspective and look at Dyersville 20 years ago versus Dyersville now, and you just think about it a little bit, Dyersville has changed a lot. And one of the things that we did in Dyersville about the time I came here and the time when Mick came was we kind of changed our philosophy a little bit about how we spent our money. And it used to be, and this was not saying that this was wrong, that Dyersville had a lot of money in CDs and we were kind of shored up for a rainy day. And so my philosophy, and I think Mick's was too, that if you've got tax money, it should be either out in the community doing something or back in the taxpayer's pocket. It shouldn't be in a CD someplace waiting for catastrophe. Now, not to say that you shouldn't have some reserves, don't get me wrong. But so we started a campaign about 20 years ago where we have plowed a lot of capital back into the city of Dyersville. And I mean, you can just mention a few of them, you know, the water tower, the Little League Park comes to mind, the trail system. And I mean, there's several things that if you've been here a long time, you can kind of notice when you think about it that weren't here 20 years ago. And I think that that has served us well. I think that we've started to reap the benefits of that. You know, one time there was one of our local citizens on the Park and Rec Commission told me, he says, you know, you can't attract people to Dyersville based solely on low taxes. You've got to have amenities and, you know, places for them to work. They've got to have a high quality of life. And I think, Carla, you remember here a couple of years ago, we were doing that, what was it, the strategic plan, I believe it was, that we sent out a survey to the people in town of what they liked about Dyersville and what they thought needed to be changed. And even the people that did the survey were surprised at two things. One was what the rate of return was, how many people sent it back, which was much higher than they normally expect. Then the other thing they said was that the thing that they liked about Dyersville, and you remember what this was? Remember what that was? The quality of life.
Oh, yes.
95% of them said the best thing about Dyersville was the quality of life. And that encompasses a lot of stuff, doesn't it? I mean, capital projects and safety and taxes and a whole lot of stuff. But I think that when you say, how's Dyersville doing? When we asked the citizens how we're doing, they said that the best thing about Dyersville is the quality of life. And I don't think we could really get much higher of a compliment than that.
And that's great. You know, people definitely love the quality of life and having things to do and events to go to and businesses to shop at as well. So yes, I would definitely say that should be high on the list.
Good.
So why don't you talk about some of the projects that you're currently working on?
Well, the project, you know, the big project that we all as citizens and taxpayers of Dyersville are going to have to tackle here shortly is the 12th 13th Avenue Bridge. And, you know, just for the people that may not know much about that, that's been a project that's been talked about for 40 years here in Dyersville. It's certainly been contemplated for the 20 years that I've been around. But, you know, when I ran last time, not this last time, but the time before, 3 years ago, one of the things that was brought up at the candidate forum was the bridge. And my thought to the citizens was that bridge is going to be a very expensive, a very complicated, project that's going to take a lot of things to fall into place. But I do think I got out of that forum that I think that the citizens of Dyersville were expecting the city council and the mayor to tackle that project. I mean, let's get serious about it. And so we've done that. We acquired the land, which, took some doing, but, we've got the land, so we own the land where we put it. And now we're starting to get that project in focus enough so we can go back to the taxpayers and say, okay, here we are. We have the land, we have the preliminary engineering study done on it that's been approved by the DNR and I think by the DOT, maybe not 100% by the DOT, but it's a design that we think that they will accept. And I think it's kind of a nice plan there to have two bridges instead of one long one. And then last year we applied for what's called a build grant, which was a federal grant to help us with that and maybe build a couple other bridges too. And we did not get that grant, but we were close. So what we need to do here in the next couple of months is to get the citizens together and let them weigh in on this, because this is a decision that does not go to the vote of the people by law. It's made by the city council. But the city council, I think, wants to know what the people want to do, because it's going to be a pretty expensive project yet. I mean, we poured a lot of money into it already. But I guess my thought is we need to kind of tap the brakes, as the commercial said the other day, and just say, okay, here's the plans. Here's kind of a real solid, not solid, but a pretty solid cost estimate of it. Do we stay or do we go? I mean, do we say, well, we like this thing, but we just don't want to spend the money? Or do we really want to go ahead and do that? Now, the Mayor Pro Tem, I think, had a good idea that he would like to have that as a in-person conversation versus a Zoom one. And, we've all gotten used to Zoom, and I think it does fine. But I think something like that's that important of a decision needs to be done in kind of the old-fashioned way, to get people in a room and let them all spout their opinion, and let the council and the mayor and the city administration listen to that. And because we're going to have to decide whether we're going to, go ahead with this project or say, well, we like it, but it's too expensive. In the meantime, too, just to end with, we're still going to apply for that build grant again this year. Maybe the chances of getting that are a little higher than they were last year, and that would certainly lower the cost of it. But I think to me, we're at where the people wanted us to be 3 years ago. And we're ready to make a serious and quality decision on whether we want to move that project ahead.
And this is a big process because it is a big ticket item, but it also is a safety feature as it connects the east side of town to the west side of town. So there is definitely some safety capabilities there in this project.
Absolutely. And all that needs to be brought out and, have everybody have their say, because it's going to be it's going to be an expensive project for us, even if we do get a grant. It's, for a town our size, it's a big bite, Anyway.
And kind of talking about the roads, another thing that's coming up is the ATV UTV efforts within the city of Dyersville. Yes,
and if you read the commercial today, I brought that up at the last council meeting, and we're going to bring it up again. I think the petition will probably be to the city council Monday at the next council meeting, Trish was telling me. But there again, that's the decision we're all going to have to make. And I don't know where that whole discussion is going to end up. I think we want to have a good discussion about it. The arguments for it is more recreation and some commerce that it would generate. I think the big argument against it is just safety. And our police chief is kind of reluctant to, welcome that type of thing in, because it might be hard to police, and it might be, we don't want any tragedies to happen here either. But there again, I think we need to make a quality decision on that. And I think that we're poised to do that. I would tell you this, and maybe I shouldn't even say this, but I think what we're going to maybe see out of this thing, and I might be wrong again, is maybe have a route that the ATVs could travel. But there's almost like two different arguments. We'd like to have ATVs in Dyersville, but I really don't want them on my residential street. And so maybe they would have like a commercial area that they could go to. But there again, I think we're lining up to make a quality decision on that, and stay tuned and weigh in on it.
Sure. Well, and I one of your mayor duties is to keep kind of control of the taxes. Can you kind of talk about the tax rate?
Well, we can, and we're just not this Monday, but next Monday, the 8th, I think is our first budget session to put together the 2022 budget for the city. And, Dyersville has been favored and blessed in so many ways. I mean, our tax base has grown like 7% last year. I think this year was over 9%. And what Dyersville has been able to do that I think is kind of unique, the tax rate in Dyersville is lower today than it was 20 years ago when I was elected. And we started to lower that under Mayor Willenberg, I think. And we looked at lowering it this year too, and the council was kind of reluctant to do that with all this COVID stuff kind of swirling around. So we did not lower it again, but we've had some increased expenses. We had to pay more money for our police department. We're not defunding the police. We're actually spending more money on it to stay where we're at. And you've always got projects that you want to do. And I guess I don't anticipate that our tax rate will go up any, but it might. And I don't know if it'll go down or not. I can tell you just kind of off the cuff, I'll tell you kind of one of the secrets that happens in a budget session. Well, we've had a discussion over the years about lowering the taxes, and the city council was not for that. The reason is that they didn't want to have to come back to the taxpayers the next year and say, we got to raise them back up again. If they lowered the taxes, it should be like a permanent reduction and not, oh yeah, we lowered it this year by 5 cents and next year we're going to raise it by 7. And so they said, if that's the case, let's just leave it alone. And I think we've been able to lower it some over the years. If you look at Dyersville versus the other municipalities in the state, I think we're near the bottom of what it costs to live in Dyersville based on the real estate tax you pay. So I don't know. We'll see.
You have a lot of growth going on in Dyersville, so that is a great thing that helps with that tax base.
I think, Carla, you and Jackie Ray and the chamber and the DDC are a big part of that too. And you're right. I think where a city really gets in trouble with taxes is when their taxable value as a city starts to shrink, because then every year your cost of the city goes up and you've got less money at the same tax rate to get that job done. So you have to raise the rate, if you're going to keep doing what you're doing. And Dyersville's been lucky that our tax base has grown faster than the cost of running the city has. And we've actually been able to reduce that tax rate a little bit over a long period. And I think that's not a common thing. It's not a common thing. Anyway.
Well, you've done a lot of things, a lot of projects on your plate. Can you kind of talk about some of the projects that you've completed?
Well, we completed the pedestrian bridge down in the park at Westside Park and dedicated that to Dave Warwall, which was kind of a moving experience for all of us. And I think it was a very nice thing for Dave and for his family. And that turned out very well. I think that's a very nice structure. That again was a project that was been talked about since I've been around here, and we finally got that one done. We're completing the walking trail down there. We're doing quite a few things maybe that you can't see, just by looking at them, but we're doing a major water and sewer project on the southeast side of town. We've done some crossings. We've improved the crossing there by Heritage Trail, by Heritage Printing. And we've got on the books to do the one at the other end of town there by Beckman and the former Country Junction, I guess. We've got a project to do there when we get it funded. A big project for us that really kind of happened sooner than it was maybe could have was the overpass out on 20. And again, we were talking about, people going the wrong way down there, and that's a tragic thing. But I have to admit, I drive there quite a bit, and I've been tempted, if I didn't catch myself, to not start to go down there. I guess I've never done that, but it is a little bit confusing, and I mean, it shouldn't be by looking at it, but it seems to be. And the police department and the police chief have been working with the DOT to try and figure out some things to stop people from going down there. And if they do, they have a camera now that if we do find out that somebody's gone the wrong way down there, the police are aware of it right away. So I think that what they've done now with putting that stop sign in the barrel there, I mean, that's kind of a crude way to say that, but that seems to be working about as well as anything. And I think we look to make that permanent this summer. And I think that the amount of people going the wrong way down there is way down. But, you know, I was mayor too when we had the second most deadly intersection in the state of Iowa, which was there by the truck stop. And that is not a pleasant thing to be mayor and have that in your town. And we got that solved. And I think that was a big deal for Dyersville. And of course, it relates to industrial growth out there too.
Sure. Well, you know, it's funny that you mentioned the overpass, because that was actually one of the top 5 projects in our Imagine 2020 community vision process. That you mentioned. And you also mentioned trails and the Candy Cane West Side Park Bridge, the Dave Vorwald Memorial Bridge. Those are 3 projects that were part of the Imagine 2020. So, and just a side note, we're actually working on Imagine 2030. So that's going to be rolling out here very shortly.
You remember what the one project was in Imagine 2020 that we didn't get done?
The Alzheimer's unit.
The Alzheimer's unit is exactly right.
Yes.
And I don't know where that's at. I guess, you know, we took a run at that 10 years ago. And I think that the conditions were not right, shall we say, at the hospital financially, and a lot of other reasons that they were interested in tackling it. But that is still something I'd like to see us do in town. You know, that's in a way, that's not a taxpayer funded thing. But, you know, I think we offered Mercy 10 years ago, whatever help we could give them, fundraising, or, you know, maybe it involves some taxes, I suppose. But the time just wasn't right then for them. And I don't know if it is now or not. I haven't really talked to them about it for a while.
Well, we completed 4 of the 5 projects, so that is really good. So
Yep.
That's a great job. So we talked about a lot of projects that you've completed and have done. Can you talk about any issues or problems that you have going on with the city?
Well, you know, again, we're favored and blessed. We're well funded here. We've got a good staff. We've got a low crime rate and a high standard of living, you know, that people like. High quality of life, I guess. You know, we've had some things that we've had to deal with maybe, and part of it is our police department. And that's not unique to us. And I'll tell you what's kind of happening there. Maybe I give you a little anecdote from 20 years ago. When 20 years ago, if we had an officer that left to join the Dubuque County Sheriff, let's say, it seemed like the police chief always said, well, I've got this guy spotted up in Anamosa, or down in Anamosa, or up in, Elkader or something, you know, that we can kind of get down here. And, you know, now there's nobody like that around. I mean, the young people are not taking up policing as a career. And so all the cities around us that are like us are kind of fighting over the same pool of people. Or not, as fighting is not the right word. I guess you shouldn't say that with police, competing for the same pool of people.
Sure.
And for that, the cost of policing has really gone up in Dyersville. And we spent, I think, about $100,000 more this year on our police department to kind of keep it where it's been. And I think that every community, big and small, is wrestling with that thing, that there just aren't that many people available anymore like there used to be to do that. But our police chief has done a good job of making it work. And, you know, one of the things about our policemen that seem to leave here are leaving to be chief of police somewhere else. They're being promoted, you know, they're not going out of the business, so to speak, or out of the career. They're being promoted to police chief or assistant chief, or so that's good that we're doing that. You know, wrestling wise, I mean, we're just trying to, you know, we're going to have a goal setting session here about a year from now to kind of reset our goals. I think the other thing that's maybe kind of on the radar screen that, you know, we're wrestling with a little bit is the pool. And I think that we want to improve the pool. Remember last year we shut down the pool because of COVID, which was a very tough decision for the council. And that saved the city probably $100,000 in operating expenses. And I think the city council made the promise. I mean, with the caveat that if we ran out of money, we couldn't fulfill it. But we want to take that money, especially that we saved on the pool, and put it into improvements to the pool. I think it's pretty well maintained, but you know, to get some more attractions up there for kids to go to and make it a more of a increase the numbers of people that would go to our pool. And so I see in the Park and Rec Committee, Gavin has got his people kind of working on that. We've contacted some pool engineers, I guess you'd call them. Remember, it used to be Burbach Aquatics, but I don't know if they're in business anymore. But people like that do city pools. And I think this next year coming up, we're going to have some interesting things to look at as a community of how we want to improve that. I think that if you look at a project that's maybe just finished here a year or so ago was the Little League Park. And I mean, that got us into a situation where we could have some tournaments in town. And I think that's going to be different for Dyersville to have some Little League tournaments, somewhat like lacrosse has up there, if you've ever been to that. I think that was a nice addition, and that was a good thing where the city and the commercial club park worked together on that project and shared some of the expenses to it, and I think we're both benefiting from that. What else, Carla, can you think of?
Well, and I know you're looking forward to a lot of projects, and one of them being the baseball factory, where there are 9 to 12-year-old tournaments that are going to be happening this summer, May through October. So that's going to bring in a lot of people throughout the whole season into the community. So that's
I think it will.
Great.
And see, what we need to do to be able to do that is have enough fields to hold them on. And, you know, we've got the Field of Dreams, which brings up another project, I guess, too. But I think now we're in a position as a city where we can attempt to host a quality event that way because we've got the facilities to do it. And I think we've got the volunteers to do it. We've got the reputation of doing a good job of that. And of course, we got the MLB game rescheduled, hopefully. I mean, you know, I would just mention that a lot of people had told me that they really felt bad for Dyersville and everything that game got canceled. And I said, well, it really didn't get canceled. I think it got postponed. And when I look back on that, I think that was probably a good thing for the city and for the MLB people both, because I think if you tried to pull something like that off with nobody in the stands and we ended up having an event that wasn't what we really wanted it to be, we could have kind of wrecked that whole venue for the future. So a lot of the work that the city did, and you did, Carl, as a chamber and the DEDC, I told people that we could put that on the shelf, and we did that last year. We put it on the shelf, and this summer we could just take it back off the shelf. We don't have to start from square one again. And that's going to be one of the real highlights of Dyersville. I think it's going to really put us on the map.
That's true. And, you know, we did do a lot of planning through that last year. And, you know, we are a little more prepared this year. We have to make some changes, obviously, due to COVID, but I think we are more aware of what is needed and some changes that need to happen even before this game even starts. So it's kind of a win-win overall.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, our chances of having a real quality event that could continue on in the future, you know, I think there was a lot of talk about that, you know, that they'd like to make this an annual event. And I think the big thing to do that is to have a quality event and a good one to start with, you know, and I think that we're poised to do that.
You know, and you're doing a great job of revitalizing downtown. I see some of the buildings are getting a new facelift downtown, which the city has a part in that.
Well, you know, I'll tell you, Carla, you've been in on these discussions over the years too. I'm a believer that if you're going to try and revitalize your downtown, one of the things that you have to do besides the facade changes is you've got to have people that actually live downtown. And I think that's one thing that with the Spirion building there, that we're actually going to get a lot more people that live in downtown Dyersville. And I think the combination of the facade upgrades and people living downtown, and you know, we're looking at a lot of other things, you know, with the park over there. That was in the paper here a week or two ago. And I think I like that design that's, you know, that's coming along with that. And that's, remember that when we came to town, Carl, that was all houses over there in the floodplain.
Yep.
And I think that, we're limited as the city of what we can do with that land. But I think that FEMA would bless what we're doing. I think it's a FEMA friendly project. And I think that's going to be a nice addition to town when that all gets kind of coordinated. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's well along. I mean, it's coming along. What other projects have we got going on? Well, we're always kind of maintaining our infrastructure, the sewer and the water. And, one of the things that happened too that, people kind of forget about is, remember the radium in our water? Remember that whole project?
Yeah.
And, we spent quite a bit of money getting the radium out of the Dyersville water. And no, we got a lot of that funded. So, I mean, it's not like we spent a huge sum. A lot of it was funded by state funds. But that apparatus out there, we've checked the water since then, and it's taken all the radium out of it. I mean, it actually works very well. And I like our water here. I mean, I think it's award-winning water. I tell people, that it tastes good. But that's a project that the council wrestled with for probably 10 years, whether to do it. And we were kind of right at the brink of having to do it, based on our radium content. And I see other cities are having to do that now too. And we've got that behind us. But our infrastructure is in good shape. I mean, Dave Warwell used to say, if you could pull up the city streets of Dyersville and look underneath them, what's under there is actually in pretty good shape because we maintained it a little bit every year. It's not gotten out of hand like some places.
Well, you have a talented crew, you have a talented staff. Kudos to the public work guys, because I see them out all the time. The city is safe, which is one of the things that we hear at the chamber. And as we ask people, why do you move here? Why do you move to Dyersville? And safety is definitely one of their major issues. So thank you for making our town safe.
Well, I like to take all the credit for that. But, it's a group effort. I think a community to me, I really believe that isn't successful based on how much taxes it levies or what it does with the tax money. I think it's a reflection of the people that live there. And I think when you look at Dyersville, it's really kind of a reflection of everybody that lives here, right?
Sure.
And it's well funded, well run. I think it's safe, it's clean. Taxes are low, but not the lowest. I mean, we're not trying to attract people with strictly low taxes. But, we've kind of hit that right combination, I think, over the last 20 years, and we work at it. I mean, the chamber's working at it every day, and the DEDC and the city council and all of us, are working at it. So, I'm kind of happy with how things are going. I would tell you that we don't have any real issues. I mean, we've got some threats on the horizon maybe, but that have to do with money more than anything else, I think. But, not threats that we're not aware of. And I would tell you this too, the city council and the city administration has monitored the sales tax and hotel motel tax through this COVID thing. And we wanted to see if we saw a significant drop off in that. Now, Carl, I think, as the consumer of the hotel motel tax, I think you've seen some there. But I mean, we haven't seen like the 4% occupancy rates that you see or hear of in some of the big cities. I think we've had some issues with that, but then the sales taxes have hung in there well. Our real estate base is going up, as we said. And I think we've got a good plan in place. Just have to keep at it here, huh?
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Jim, for taking this time to kind of give us a Dyersville update. It's always good to hear what's going on and what's on the horizon. And it's always good to hear what has happened in the past, because we need to celebrate those projects.
And thanks for inviting me, because it's always kind of fun to talk about Dyersville, because we've got a lot of good things to say. And you would be amazed when people find out I'm mayor of Dyersville, how many compliments the city gets and how many compliments the people of Dyersville get. I think that I like to think they admire what we've done. And I actually had a mayor of a town around us the other day tell me that we look to see what Dyersville is doing and we kind of try to do the same. And I think he meant that as a sincere compliment. So, hopefully we're well thought of by our peers, and hey, we're doing well here in Dyersville, I think.
Great. Well, thank you for your time. And I want to thank Fidelity Bank for sponsoring this. If there are any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to the chamber or to the Dyersville City Hall. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Carla.